Gang, ghetto gang, ghetto gang, ghetto gang, ghetto gang. We here, we back. I'm not going to belabor the point. I've been promising that I was going to drop this Christmas series, and I just was trying to figure out which angle to take with it, man. There's so many different, so much information, right? But salute to everybody who decided to pull up and check it out. You know what I'm saying? Thank you so very much. For those who are wondering what's my background of right now, it is of Zwarte Piet in Sinterklaas, the annual German celebration. And we'll get to that too, because I know people like to swear there were no quote unquote black people in Germany. But Zwarte Piet is a beloved German character who went around with Sinterklaas, aka their version of Santa, giving out gifts, going down the chimneys, all that. But we'll get to that. We'll get to a lot of different cool stuff. These kids don't look like they are upset. The kids look like they are enjoying seeing Sinterklaas and Zwarte Piet. And Zwarte Piet is walking around with the bag of presents. That is not Krampus, another character we'll get to talking to as we go through this series. And let's have fun with it, man. As always, any questions, comments, critiques, criticisms, you want to tell me how crazy I am, that I need to just shut up, his ghettopointofview@gmail.com, his ghettopointofview@gmail.com, his ghettopointofview@gmail.com. All right, so with all that out the way, I'm not going to belabor the point. Always thankful to the Most High for all the blessings and all the lessons. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Or for those who follow our Bible study series, hey ya. You know what I mean? Let's say a Native American ghetto. Well, that's also the word in Hebrew for Most High as well. So go let it go. Thank you guys for pulling up. Check out that series if you're so inclined. Check out all the dope series that we're working on over here. I'm going to take care of some business really quickly. Forgive me, I just got off a panel, man. But we got to get it done. Let's go.
Disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
Word. Fair use. So, for those that may not know, the history, when we talk about history and stuff, we're actually talking about the Roman or the pagan, the cultish holiday of Saturnalia, in honoring the Roman god Saturn. They came up with this amazing festival day that they would have every year around December 25th and around the vernal equinox. It'd be multiple days of revelry, multiple days of men on men loving, multiple days of men violently attacking women, multiple days of the slaves being able to control and tell the rulers of the houses what to do. It was a time of complete chaos, and it was all in veneration to their lord Saturn. And I guess some people be like, "Whoa, ghetto, that's not what I'm celebrating it for, and that's not what I'm doing." And I can hear that argument, to some degree. But in my humble opinion, you're just lying to yourself, because you're not fooling anybody. You might think you're fooling yourself, but you're really not. you really are kind of just following something that we don't need to be following. And here on this channel, we doing everything from a biblical perspective, so what's the biblical perspective on that? And I'm going to pull up some verses, and we could dig, and y'all can say, oh, I don't believe in that, and that's not how I see it. And you'd be completely entitled to that perspective, that belief, that way of thinking. So with all that being said, let me dig in real quick. Book of Jeremiah, chapter 10. The book of Jeremiah, chapter 10. This is which version is this? Let's go to the ESV first, just so it sounds plain and simple, and then we can always pull up the King James version as well. Shout to Bible Hub, right? Book of Jeremiah, chapter 10. Hear the word that the Lord speaks to you, O house of Israel. Thus says the Lord, learn not. All right, guys, I see y'all tomorrow. I'm a wrap up for today. I hope you learned something, you were edified and informed. Yeah, that's all I had to say. I mean, I could really stop there. Learn not the ways of the nations, nor be dismayed at the signs of the heavens. A lot of interesting things going on right now with unidentified objects floating in the skies in large numbers. Learn not the ways of the nations, nor be dismayed at the signs of the heavens. But in this particular reference, it's talking about the stars, the celestial bodies, because the nations are dismayed at them. They idolize and worship the stars in the sky. I'm a Sagittarius. I'm an Aquarius. But I am a Pisces though, so shout to Team Pisces. But anyway, for the customs of the people are vanity. A tree from the forest is cut down. Uh-oh. What's that sound like? What does that sound like? A tree from the forest is cut down and worked with an axe by the hands of a craftsman. What does that sound like, guys? Family, what does that sound like? A tree from the forest is cut down. What does that sound like, family? We don't know what that is. Tree from the forest is cut down. A tree from the forest is cut down. Are we oblivious now? We don't know. We don't know. We don't know nothing. 10 Houston area farms for cutting down your Christmas tree. Cutting your own Christmas tree. Excuse me. 10 Houston area farms for cutting your own Christmas tree. My goodness, we are destroying nature for the sake of these damn festivals. Houston, Texas, it's time to pick out that Christmas tree. It's time to pick out that Christmas tree. We've made a list of places where you and your family can go and pick out and cut your own Christmas tree this year. Dewberry Farms, AC Tree Farm. Opening the Friday after Thanksgiving, the AC Farm will help your family find the perfect Christmas tree. Alexander's Christmas Tree Farm, opening the Friday after Thanksgiving. Beaver's Christmas Tree Farm. Covered Sea Tree Farm. And the list goes on and on. Double Creek Farm, High Star Christmas trees. Want a Christmas tree and a chance to meet Santa? Satan? What? The Christmas tree farm offers families the chance to meet Satan, ride a wagon, and play in a maze while searching for Christmas trees. But Ghetto, wasn't the original Santa a brother, St. Nicholas? Oh, we're going to get to that too. But you're not going to sit here and ascribe what this evil Santa does to my man St. Nicholas at all. My man St. Nicholas, that was a good brother. That's why they canonized him and made him a saint. And we're going to definitely get into the history of that man. St. Nicholas wasn't a black man, somebody Dr. Goldstein would say. Don't worry. We'll get to all of that. But getting back to where was I? Yes. I'll be a little all over the place, family. Forgive me. A tree from the forest is cut down and worked with an axe by the hands of a craftsman. They decorate it with silver and gold. They fasten it with hammer and nails so that it cannot move. Their idols are like scarecrows in a cucumber field, and they cannot speak. They have to be carried, for they cannot walk. Do not be afraid of them, for they cannot do evil, neither is it in them to do good. Family, what are we doing? Mufasa, Mufasa. Vain are the ways of the people, family. They cut down a tree from the forest is cut down and worked with an axe by the hands of. They decorated with silver and gold. Y'all done heard that? Silver and gold. Is that what we supposed to be doing, family? Is that what we supposed to be doing at all? Absolutely not. So, and the reason we're not supposed to be doing that is because these things harken back to pagan holidays and pagan celebration. And if that's the side of history you want, so be it. Thou sayest, to borrow from some good brothers. That's the side of history you want. That's the side of history you want. But we not jacking that wave over here. So again, the history, Saturnalia. Let's start right here with the History Channel. Real basics. Let's get to, oh God, they don't play. They starting it off spicy. Look at this right here. We can argue about the color of the people later. They not playing with you. They showing you what it is. What is Saturnalia? Saturnalia, the most popular holiday on the ancient Roman calendar, derived from older farming-related rituals of midwinter and the winter solstice, especially the practice of offering gifts, gift giving, or sacrifices to the gods during the winter sowing season. The pagan celebration of Saturn, the Roman god of agriculture and time, began as a single day, but by the late Republic, 133 to 131 BC, because of course BC time is in reverse. That BC time is going in reverse. It had expanded to a week-long festival beginning December 17th on the Julian calendar, which the Romans used at the time. The winter solstice fell on December 25th on the Julian calendar, Pope Julius's calendar, which the Romans used at the time. The winter solstice fell where? This is just veneration to Saturnalia. This is just veneration to Saturn. How the Romans celebrated Saturnalia. Oh, this is when it gets spicy. During Saturnalia, work and business came to a halt. Oh, so it was a day off from work, huh? Couldn't get your mail. Couldn't handle no business at the bank. Everything was shut down during Saturnalia. This is starting to sound familiar, is it not? So the solstice was on the 25th, and this is a week-long festival beginning on the 17th. Work, business came to a halt. Schools and courts of law closed, and the normal social patterns were suspended. People decorated their homes with wreaths and other greenery and shed their traditional togas in favor of colorful clothes known as synthesis. Even enslaved people did not have to work on Saturnalia. Oh, you niggas get off today. Damn, ghetto, it gotta be all that. Oh, you niggas get off today. You will worship Saturn. That's what they did to the Hebrews. Or did with the Hebrews. Because man, oh man, I got some videos coming up. It's just as we rolling into 25, that's going to knock somebody's socks off, boy. But were allowed to participate in these festivals. In some cases, in most cases, they sat at the head of the table while their masters served them. As I explained already, they would switch places with the masters. It's crazy. Instead of working, Romans spent Saturnalia gambling, singing, playing music, feasting, socializing, and giving each other gifts. Wax table candles called ciri were common gifts during Saturnalia to signify light returning after the solstice. On the last day of Saturnalia celebrations, known as Sigillaria, many Romans gave their friends and loved ones small terracotta figurines known as signallaria, which may have referred back to older celebrations involving human sacrifice. Saturnalia was by far the jolliest Roman holiday. The Roman poet Catullus famously described it as the best of times, so riotous, full of riots, were the festivities that the Roman author Pliny the Elder, reportedly built a soundproof room so that he could work during the raucous celebrations. Constructed in the 4th century to replace the earlier temple, the Temple of Saturn in Rome served as the ceremonial center of later Saturnalia celebrations. On the first days of the festivities, a young pig will be publicly sacrificed at the temple, which was located in the northwest corner of the Roman Forum. The cult statue of Saturn in the temple traditionally had woolen bonds tied around his feet, but during Saturnalia, these bonds were loosened to symbolize God's liberation. Oh, we're liberal now. God is free. In many Roman households, a mock king was chosen, the Saturnalicious Princeps, or the leader of Saturnalia, sometimes called the Lord of Misrule, usually a lowlier member of the household. This figure was responsible for making mischief during the celebrations, insulting guests, wearing crazy clothes. Oh, you mean like a man wearing women's clothes? A man wearing women's clothes? Chasing women and girls, etc. Oh, gotta make mischief. The idea was that he ruled over chaos rather than normal Roman order. The common holiday custom of hiding coins or other small objects in cakes is one of many dating back to Saturnalia, as this was a method of choosing the mock king. How Saturnalia led to Christmas. Thanks to the Roman Empire's conquest in Britain and the rest of Europe from the 2nd century BC to the 4th century AD and the suppression of other seasonal rites practiced by the Celts and other groups. And if you haven't checked out the special we did about Halloween and the Celtics, the Celtics, definitely check that out. It's 10 hours of information. 10 hours of information. 10 hours of information. It's up. Go check that out. Derive many of their traditional celebrations of midwinter from Saturnalia. The Christian holiday of Christmas especially owes many of its traditions to the ancient Roman festival. Oh, you good Christians celebrating ancient Roman festivals? That's what we doing. Y'all worshiping Saturn. Including the time of year Christmas is celebrated. Including the time of year Christmas is celebrated. The Bible does not give a birth date for Jesus' birth. In fact, some theologians have concluded he was probably born in spring. So who you celebrating, you Christians? Celebrating Saturn? You celebrating Mithras? You celebrating Nimrod? You celebrating Gilgamesh? Might be celebrating all of that. We'll get there though. We'll get there. As suggested by references to shepherds and sheep in the nativity story. By the 4th century AD, Western Christian churches settled on celebrating Christmas on December 25th, which allowed them to incorporate the holiday with Saturnalia and with other popular pagan midwinter traditions, because these people were all about getting their numbers up. So they would integrate as many unchristian, unrighteous, unbiblical customs and ways of the people as possible, transitioning them right from one church into the other. They didn't care that this was wrong. They didn't care that this was vain. They didn't care that this goes against Jeremiah 10. They would do it anyway. Is Christmas a pagan holiday? Pagans and Christians coexisted, though not always happily, during this period, and this likely represented an effort to convince the remaining pagan Romans to accept Christianity as Rome's official religion. Before the end of the 4th century, many of the traditions of Saturnalia, including giving gifts, singing, fa la 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 la, lighting candles, feasting, even the meal, and merrymaking, had become absorbed by the traditions of Christmas, as many of us know them today. And here go your sources. Don't say you ain't get no sources. Don't say you ain't get no sources. All right. Take a quick break. Be right back. We got cooking to do, baby.
A 2-piece special with lots of hot sauce and all the fries.
Fair use.
Boy, wake up. It's almost chicken time.
Ghetto Presentz Xmas Aint It, Part 1. Let's go.
Hell no. What is it? These motherfuckers talking about they out of chicken. What? Listen.
Welcome to Colonel's Fried Chicken. Unfortunately, we are out of chicken at the moment. Please go wait until we have more chicken. Thank you. God bless.
Not out of chicken.
Oh, man.
My God.
No bullshit.
No chicken? You mean I ain't gonna be able to get
What
that
you mean
money?
they ain't got no chicken?
Out of chicken. It's Colonel's Fried Chicken.
This is outrageous. This is an outrage.
Hello, 911? No, I ain't calling a snitch. I got a real emergency. Yeah, I hope.
Some of us have been looking forward to this day for a long, long time.
Hello, my emergency? These fools done ran out of chicken.
Welcome to Colonel's Fried Chicken. Unfortunately,
I ain't saving this motherfucker until I get my chicken. I ain't got chicken. I ain't got no job. You better give up. That's what they do. Keep screwing the little man. They're not gonna get away with this. You're right. Hey, he's right. It's time for us to fight back. Let's knock some motherfuckers out about this chicken. We are not gonna take it in there. Damn, I'm chicken. That is so good.
Encyclopedia Britannica.com, Britannica.com. Saturnalia. And you see as they have a picture of the temple of Saturn here. a picture of the Temple of Saturn, among the ruins of the Roman Forum. Temple of Saturn. Saturnalia. This is by the editors of Encyclopedia Britannica. They just updated this again. Must be something here they wanted to take out. All right. Yo, Ghetto, you be going hard. Saturnalia, the most popular of Roman festivals dedicated to the Roman god Saturn. So are you worshiping Saturn? Saturn, Roman god. Are you worshiping Saturn? In Roman religion, the god of sowing or seed. The Romans equated him with the Greek agricultural deity Cronus. And why do I laugh there? Because, man, as I keep doing more research, these deities ain't who you think they are. I know we think these are some mythical beings that never existed, but a lot of these Roman deities, these Greek deities, were actual people that they deified, just like the Catholic Church would canonize and make people saints and popes and bishops and say that that's God representation on earth. And the saints were these holy people after the adventures or the missions of God they took up on this earth. They also did the same thing, and they worshiped and venerated these people as their gods. Many of those people were of Hebrew origin. Let's get to it. The remains of Ghetto, you can't prove that. Nigga, we was kings. All right, we was kings, my nigga. We was kings, my nigga. The remains of Saturn's temple at Rome. 8 columns of the pronaos, the porch, still dominate the west end of the forum. The remains of Saturn's temple at Rome. The 8 columns still dominate the west end of the forum at the foot of the Clivus Capitolinus. Can't say that 5 times fast. Damn. The temple goes back to the earliest records of the Republic. It was restored by Lucius Munatius Plancus in 42 BCE, so before the Common Era, or 42 BC, as some would say, after a fire. It's always convenient how some of the most important records catch on fire. Bitch, set it on fire. Fire. In the 4th century CE, it served as the treasury, the Aerarium Saturni of the Roman state. Saturn's cult partner was the obscure goddess Lua. Gotta unlock the article, but thank you. We good with that. I just wanted a little bit of information on Saturn to make you understand that, at least from the people that edit the Encyclopedia Britannica's perspective, you are worshiping Saturn. The festival's influence continues to be felt throughout the Western world. The Temple of Saturn with the Temple of Vespasian. Who the Flavians? Titus Vespasian, Flavius, the Flavians. Among the ruins of the Roman Forum in Rome. We got to talk about these Flavians, man. That Flavian dynasty and that creation. Oh, we gonna get to it, man. Originally celebrated on December 17th, Saturnalia was extended first to 3 and eventually to 7 days. The date has been connected to the winter sowing season, which in modern Italy varies from October to January. Remarkably, like the Greek Chronia, it was the liveliest festival of the year. All work and business was suspended. Slaves were given temporary freedom to say and do what they liked. And certain moral restrictions were eased. Men was sleeping with men. Men was beating on women. It was deplorable what went on during Saturnalia. things that went on during Saturnalia and was seen as normal. We have some of our biggest stars, some of our biggest celebrities in the world trying to absolve themselves and remove those images and reputations for one night. We talk about something these people did annually in veneration to their god Saturn, who Saturn's Day is named after. All work and business was suspended. Slaves were given temporary freedom to say and do what they liked, and certain moral restrictions were eased. The streets were infected with a Mardi Gras madness. A mock king was chosen, the Saturnalicious Principus. The seasonal greeting, Io Saturnalia. Io Saturnalia was heard everywhere. Io Saturnalia, Io Saturnalia, Io Saturnalia. The closing days, is that like saying Merry Christmas? Merry Christmas? The closing days of Saturnalia were known as Sigilleria because of the custom of making toward the end of the festival presents of candles, wax models of fruit, and waxen statuettes, which were fashioned by the sigillari, or manufacturers of small figures in wax and other media. The cult statue of Saturn himself, traditionally bound at the feet with woolen bands, was untied, presumably to come out and join the fun. Very interesting. Saturn's feet were bound. Huh. Okay, we'll go there later. The influence of Saturnalia upon the celebrations of Christmas and the New Year has been direct influence. The fact that Christmas was celebrated on the birthday of the unconquered sun, Dies Solis Invicti Nati, gave the season a solar background connected with the calends of January 1st, the Roman New Year, when houses were decorated with greenery and lights, and presents were given to children and the poor. Concerning the gift candles, Romans had a story that an old prophecy bade the earliest inhabitants of Latium send heads to Hades and Phota to Saturn. So this is talking about what they would do. The earliest inhabitants, Romans, this is how they would venerate their gods around this time. The ancient Latins interpreted this to mean human sacrifices, but according to legend, Hercules advised using lights. Phos meaning light or man, according to accent, and not human heads. Interesting. Roman religion, Roman beliefs and practices of the inhabitants of the Italian peninsula from ancient times until the ascendancy of Christianity in the 4th century CE, 4th century Common Era, during a period known as Classical Antiquity. The Romans, according to the orator and politician Cicero, excelled all other peoples in the unique wisdom that made them realize that everything is subordinate to the rule and direction of the gods. Yet Roman religion was based not on divine grace, but instead on mutual trust, fides, between God and man. The object of Roman religion was to secure the cooperation, benevolence, and peace of the gods. The Romans believed that this divine help would make it possible for them to master the unknown forces around them that inspired awe and anxiety. Religio. And thus they would be able to live successfully. So if they appeased the gods, if they venerated the gods, if they gave gifts to the gods, if they paid homage to the gods, they thought that they would be favored. Consequently, there arose a body of rules, the jus divinum, the divine law ordaining what had to be done or avoided. These precepts for many centuries contained scarcely any moral element. They consisted of directions for the correct performance of rituals. Roman religion laid almost exclusive emphasis on cult acts, endowing them with all the sanctity of patriotic tradition. Roman ceremonial was so obsessively meticulous and conservative that if the various partisan accretions that grew upon it throughout the years can be eliminated, remnants of very early thought can be detected near the surface. This demonstrates one of the many differences between Roman religion and Greek religion, in which such remnants tend to be deeply concealed. The Greeks, when they first began to document themselves, had already gone quite a long way towards sophisticated, abstract, and sometimes daring conceptions of divinity and its relation to man. But the orderly, legalistic, and relatively inarticulate Romans never quite gave up their old practices. You hear that? Moreover, until the vivid pictorial imagination of the Greeks began to influence them, they lacked the Greek taste for seeing their deities in personalized human form and endowing them with mythology. In a sense, there is no Roman mythology, or scarcely any, although I dispute that, but we won't get into that right now. Although discoveries in the 20th century, notably the ancient region of Etruria between Tiber and Arno rivers, west and south of the Apennines, confirm that Italians were not entirely unmythological. Their mythology is sparse. What is found at Rome is chiefly only pseudo-mythology, which in due course clothed their own nationalistic or family legends in mythical dress borrowed from the Greeks. Boom! Let me say that again. What is found at Rome is chiefly only a pseudo mythology to them, to the people who edit Britannica. Okay, we'll let it go. Which in due course clothe their own nationalistic or family legends, their own family members, their own people in mythical dress borrowed from the Greeks. So they took the Greek stories and they literally attributed it to their own family, their own leaders of their own nation, their own kings, their own elders, their own prophets. Yo, Ghetto, why you getting so passionate about that? What are you getting at? Some of the top Hebrews of the Bible, some of the best, the biggest patrons of the tribes of Israel are these Greek gods, are these Roman gods, I mean. What? Yo, Ghetto, stop being crazy. Kronos is Israel. What? Yo, Ghetto, you. Hallelujah, 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 man. Email me and let me know how crazy I am. But before you do that, please support the movement. $ his ghetto point of view. $ his ghetto point of view. $ his ghetto point of view. Every $100, $1,000, $5,000, and $10,000 donation you give helps keep this train going down the track. We appreciate you, even if you could only give $10, $20, $5. It's all love and it's all appreciated, and it all helps us keep this thing moving. We have a bunch of amazing initiatives that we got in store for 2025, and we thank you, because without y'all, none of it is possible. So please continue to donate, give as much as you can, as often as you can, and tell a friend to tell a friend. This is the movement that deserves a bit of gas to pump up that car. No brakes, we keep it going. $ his ghetto point of view. Nor did Roman religion have a creed, provided that a Roman performed the right religious actions, he was free to think what he liked about the gods, and having no creed, he usually deprecated emotion as out of place in acts of worship. Just being a little uptight and a little stiff, I guess. It's cool. It's cool. In spite, however, of the antique features not far from the surface, it is difficult to reconstruct the history and evolution of Roman religion. The principal literary sources, antiquarians such as the 1st century BCE Roman scholars Varro and Virius Flaccus, and the poets who were their contemporaries under the late Republic and Augustus, wrote 700 and 800 years after the beginning of Rome. They wrote at a time when the introduction of Greek methods and myths had made erroneous and flattering interpretations of the distant Roman past unavoidable. In order to supplement such conjectures or facts as they provided, scholars rely on surviving copies of the religious calendar and on other inscriptions. There is also a rich, though frequently cryptic, treasure house of material in coins and medallions and in artwork. From the earliest times, there are various findings and findings of archaeology, but they are not sufficient to enable scholars to reconstruct archaic Roman religion. They do, however, suggest that in the early first millennium BCE, though not necessarily at the time of traditional date for the founding of Rome, Latin and Sabine shepherds and farmers with light plows came from the Alban Hills and the Sabine Hills, and they that proceeded to establish villages at Rome, the Latins on the Palatine Hill and the Sabines on the Quirinal and Esquiline Hills. About 620 communities merged, and circa 575, the Forum Romanum between them became the town's meeting place and market. From such evidence, it appears that the early Romans, like many other Italians, sometimes saw divine force, divinity operating in pure function and act, such as in human activities like opening doors or giving birth to children. Meaning they saw God and everything, like even the smallest acts. Oh yeah, that child being born, that's a blessing from up above. That's a blessing from God. Me being able to get this job, me being able to get this small blessing, this small thing going my way, me not being not hit by a car, hit by a chariot, flying down the street, small blessings. And in non-human phenomena such as the movements of the sun and the seasons of the soil, they directed this sounds very familiar, no? They directed this feeling of veneration both toward happenings that affected human beings regularly and sometimes toward single unique manifestations, such as a mysterious voice that once spoke and saved them in a crisis. That doesn't sound familiar at all. They multiplied functional deities of this kind to an extraordinary degree of religious atomism. Anyway, in which countless powers or forces were identified with one phase of life or another. Their functions were sharply defined, and in approaching them, it was important to use the right names and titles. So multiple deities for multiple functions. Sounds very Egyptian. If one knew the name, one could secure a hearing. Failing that, it was often best to cover every contingency by admitting that the divinity was unknown, the great mystery, Wakantanka, or adding the precautionary phrase or whatever name you want to be called, or if it be a god or goddess. Veneration of objects. The same sort of anxious awe was extended not only to functions and acts, but also to certain objects that inspired a similar belief that they were in some way more than natural. This feeling was aroused, for example, by springs and woods, objects of gratitude in the torrid summer, or by stones that were often believed to be meteorites. i.e. had apparently reached the earth in an uncanny fashion. To these were added products of human action such as burial places and boundary stones, and inexplicable things such as Neolithic implements, probably the mysterious meteorites were often used, or bronze shields, artifacts that had strayed in from more advanced cultures. Whew. Jupiter, baby. Jupiter. Let me move up ahead. Let me see if they have. We'll come. This is actually really good. We'll come back to this. Actually, let me read about Jupiter real quick, and then we'll move on from this. To describe the powers in these objects and the functions that inspired the horror or sacred thrill, the Romans eventually employed the word numen, suggestive of God's nod, nutus. So you got God's blessing on that, nutus. Though so far, there is no evidence that this usage was earlier than 2nd century BCE. The application of the word spirit to numen is anachronistic in regard to early epochs because it presupposes a society capable of greater abstraction, nor must the term mana used by Melanesians to describe their own concept of superhuman forces be introduced too readily. The two societies are not necessarily analogous, meaning like they're not one and the same. They got differences. They may have some things that are similar, but they're not a monolith. And besides the deduction from such comparisons that the Romans experienced an impersonal, predeistic, and primordial stage of religion that neatly preceded the personal stage cannot be regarded as correct. On the contrary, from the very earliest times, the supernatural forces that they envisaged, including a number of deities and analogous human forms. Among them were certain high gods. Foremost among these was a divinity of the sky, Jupiter, akin to the sky gods. Jupiter, akin to the sky gods of the earlier Indo-European speaking peoples, the Sanskrit Deus and the Greeks Zeus. So Jupiter is Zeus, guys. Not yet probably a supreme being, though superior in some sense to the other divine gods. This god of the heavens was easily linked with the forces of function and object, with lightning and weather, or with the uncanny stone that came from on high. It was called Jupiter Lapis. Very dope article. Shout out to Britannica. Let's take a quick break. Support the movement, gang. Support the movement. $ his ghetto point of view. $ his ghetto point of view. Because I could do this all by myself without y'all.
Detective determined that was a lie.
No, I can't, gang. I appreciate every single thing y'all do. I appreciate every like, every share, every subscription, everyone who tells somebody to tell someone else, everyone who puts the episodes up on all the different social media platforms. You guys are what makes this amazing, and I appreciate that. We'll take a quick break. Support the movement, support the movement, support the movement.
What's good? What's really good? Y'all already know, folks. Riley Freeman, a.k.a. Young Reezy, doing the Godzilla Big Head All-Star Weekend. Only 8 years old and putting the smackdown on these bitch-ass niggas. Here he is winning the three-point contest, making it rain like Lil Wayne out this motherfucker, without even taking off his warm-ups or his Timbs, nigga. And later, he bust Vince Carter's ass in the slam dunk contest. Look at this right here. Look. Man, I've seen it all. Ernie, nigga, back to you.
This Riley Freeman, a very exciting but controversial player. Last year, he became the first person to leave elementary school and go to the NBA when the Miami Heat signed him to a $3 gazillion contract, the biggest in league history.
I don't care how much they pay him, Ernie. This kid is a disgrace to basketball. He epitomizes everything wrong with the game today.
Now, Charles, it seems to me that you're hating on Riley because he stacks paper to the ceiling and rides on 24-inch chrome.
Yeah, that's true.
Now let's go back to my nigga on the floor.
Man, check out how Young Reezy shit on these niggas in today's game. Here's Riley going up against Kobe Bryant and breaks his ankle. Look at that bitch-ass nigga limping off the floor. Ooh, no wonder they ride his nuts so hard. Seems like Yao Ming wants some too. Get your bitch-ass out the way, nigga. Fellas, I'm here with All-Star MVP Riley Freeman. 87 points, 25 rebounds. Riley, is there anything you can't do, nigga?
I don't know. Go, bro.
Good one, little brother. Shaq, 17 blocks for Riley. You had one. That's got to make you feel f***ed up.
It did at first. Then I realized hating on Riley's superior game doesn't make my game any better, so guess I have to work harder, step up to his level. That's what great players do. They bring the best out of everyone on the team.
So he's better than you?
Yes.
And stacks more paper and gets more hoes than you, nigga?
Absolutely.
And speaking of hoes, we...
Fair use.
It is a story everyone knows. After a rude refusal by a local innkeeper, Mary and Joseph bedded down in a barn in Bethlehem. The next day, Mary gave birth to a son, the Son of God. Those are the biblical origins of Christmas. But centuries before Jesus walked the earth, early Europeans were celebrating light and birth in the darkest days of winter.
Before that story, they were already celebrating life and birth in winter. Let's go.
Christmas. But centuries before Jesus walked the earth, early Europeans were celebrating light and birth in the darkest days of winter. In the Norse country, this winter celebration was known as Yule. Around December 21st,
like the Yule log? Yule? Let's go.
The winter solstice, fathers and sons would drag home the biggest log they could find and set it on fire. The Yule log warmed, but it also looked ahead. Each spark was said to represent a pig or calf to be born in the spring. Also dragged inside were evergreens, the one plant that could make it through a Norse winter. Evergreens proved. In the Norse country, this winter celebration was known as Yule. Around December 21st, the winter solstice, fathers and sons would drag home the biggest log they could find and set it on fire.
Set it on fire.
The Yule log warmed, but it also looked ahead.
Fair use. Let's go.
Each spark was said to represent a pig or calf to be born in the spring. Also dragged inside were evergreens, the one plant that could make it through a Norse winter. Evergreens proved that life persisted in this dark time.
There's a natural attraction to that which lives through the winter when one is struggling to survive through the winter. The evergreen is that part of nature that seems impervious to the coming of winter and the diminishing of the sun. And so it's an absolutely natural symbol, one which I think we react to almost without thinking about.
For as long as the Yule log burned, about 12 days, feasting and revelry reigned supreme. In fact, this was one of the few times that meat was abundant, since cattle had just been slaughtered for the long winter.
There is a necessity to kill most of the cattle, because you can't keep them alive over the winter when there's nothing to feed them on. You keep a few alive for breeding. But there is an opportunity for a great blowout, for a great feast, time to party.
Time to party, baby. Like it.
The party raged inside in defiance of winter's deadly howl.
There is a spooky feel about the northern Yuletide festivals. You may be all right there in the hall with the blazing fires, but outside there are demons, there are spirits.
In Germany, the pagan god Odin lent his name to this midwinter holiday. Early Germans were terrified of Odin, whose nocturnal flights decided who would prosper or perish in the coming year. Later, we'd see another Christmas sky rider, Santa Claus. But for now, staying inside became the smartest choice. Winter's deadly howl.
There is a spooky feel about the northern Yuletide festivals. You may be all right there in the hall with the blazing fires, but outside there are demons, there are spirits.
In Germany, the pagan god Odin lent his name to this midwinter holiday. Early Germans were terrified of Odin, whose nocturnal flights decided who would prosper or perish in the coming year. Later, we'd see another Christmas sky rider.
So Odin did flights overnight, and depending on where he flew, that would dictate whether you had a good or bad New Year. You can't make this up.
Santa Claus. But for now, staying inside became the smartest choice at this frightening time of the year. A 1,000 miles away in Rome, winter was less harrowing, but the December festivals were just as elaborate. 1 week before the winter solstice, Romans began celebrating Saturnalia, a month-long orgy of food and drink. Named for the god Saturn, which meant plenty, in Germany, the pagan god Odin lent his name to this midwinter holiday. Early Germans were terrified of Odin, whose nocturnal flights decided who would prosper or perish in the coming year. Later, we'd see another Christmas sky rider, Santa Claus. But for now, staying inside became the smartest choice at this frightening time of the year. A 1,000 miles away in Rome, winter was less harrowing, but the December festivals were just as elaborate. 1 week before the winter solstice, Romans began celebrating Saturnalia, a month-long orgy of food and drink. Named for the god Saturn, which meant plenty, Rome's established order was turned on its head during this wild, delirious time.
The Saturnalia celebrations were certainly times of revelry, of turning the social order upside down, of having the master pretend to be the slave and the slave pretend to be the master, sort of a time out of time in which one could celebrate a kind of disorder in the universe.
One of the holiday's important feasts was Juvenalia, which celebrated the children of Rome.
Although these early festivals are not necessarily about children particularly, but they are about fertility, children did have their particular place. The indulgence of children, of course, is very much a part of our modern Christmas, but it did have its place even in these ribald, drunken festivals that the Romans had.
Among the upper classes in Rome, solstice celebrations were significantly more sober. Many influential Romans worshipped Mithra, the god of the unconquerable sun. To this small but powerful sect, the birthday of Mithra was the holiest day of the year.
December 25th was the winter solstice in that part of the world. And it was also understood to be the birthday of the sun god, Mithra. And Mithra was said to be born from a rock. Shepherds came to worship him as he was an infant god born out in that pastoral place in the fields. And many of those stories, of course, have come into Christian tradition.
Many of those stories came into Christian tradition.
More sober.
Y'all heard it.
The Saturnalia celebrations were certainly times of revelry, of turning the social order upside down, of having the master pretend to be the slave and the slave pretend to be the master, sort of a time out of time in which one could celebrate a kind of disorder in the universe.
One of the holiday's important feasts was Juvenalia, which celebrated the children of Rome.
Although these early festivals are not necessarily about children particularly, but they are about fertility, children did have their particular place. The indulgence of children, of course, is very much a part of our modern Christmas, but it did have its place even in these ribald, drunken festivals that the Romans had.
Among the upper classes in Rome, solstice celebrations were significantly more sober. Many influential Romans worshipped Mithra, the god of the unconquerable sun. To this small but powerful sect, the birthday of Mithra was the holiest day of the year.
December 25th was the winter solstice in that part of the world, and it was also understood to be the birthday of the sun god, Mithra. And Mithra was said to be born from a rock. Shepherds came to worship him as he was an infant god born out in that pastoral place in the fields. And many of those stories, of course, have come into Christian tradition.
While Romans were worshiping the sun god, a new religion was taking hold throughout the empire. At first, Christians didn't celebrate the birth of Christ. His resurrection was the essential fact of the new religion. By the 4th century, however, the question of the holy birth became impossible to ignore.
There were questions within the church about how to even imagine Jesus. Some people believed that Jesus was purely a spiritual emanation of God, and others believed that Jesus must have actually appeared on earth, and so the decision to celebrate Jesus' birth meant that Jesus was actually a human or a human form.
For Christians, the fact of his birth was settled, but the date remained a mystery. The Bible doesn't mention exactly when Christ was born, but certain facts suggest it probably was not in December.
So if you're going to sort through the runes of the scriptures, Jesus was probably born in the spring. If the shepherds are out in the fields watching their flock by night, we're not talking about one of the cold spells.
That Jesus was purely a spiritual emanation of God, and others believed that Jesus must have actually appeared on earth, and so the decision to celebrate Jesus' birth meant that Jesus was actually a human or a human form.
For Christians, the fact of his birth was settled, but the date remained a mystery. The Bible doesn't mention exactly when Christ was born, but certain facts suggest it probably was not in December.
So if you're going to sort through the runes of the scriptures, Jesus was probably born in the spring. If the shepherds are out in the fields watching their flock by night, we're not talking about one of the cold spells at the heart of winter.
If pagan Rome was already celebrating the birth of Mithra on December 25th, it seemed natural to honor the birth of the Christ child at the same time. By the 4th century, the Church made it official. December 25th was declared the feast day of the Nativity.
But of course it's a very short step from the feast day of the risen sun, S-U-N, to the feast day of the risen sun, S-O-N. So in a sense, it's a very good choice, and the symbolism is there because the feast day of the incarnate Son was about fertility, about birth. And so, obviously, is the Christian Christmas.
The church knew it could not outlaw the pagan traditions of Christmas, so it set out to adopt them. The evergreens traditionally brought inside were soon decorated with apples, symbolizing the Garden of Eden. These apples would eventually become Christmas ornaments.
You can't make it up.
And holly, a traditional midwinter decoration, was recast to represent Christ's crown of thorns.
People already had their own agenda for this season, and that agenda was not one that was really radically changed when the names got changed from non-Christian to Christian names. The church pretty much had a policy of live and let live. If people would call themselves Christians and do lip service to the birth of the Savior, then let them do anything that they wanted to do with it. But on the other hand, by assigning the nativity to that time of year, the church really gave up the opportunity to control the way that celebration took place.
The tension between piety and revelry at Christmas would reach its logical and extreme conclusion in Puritan England, when the holiday would be considered so un-Christian it was done away with altogether. By the Middle Ages, Christianity had largely replaced the old pagan religions of Europe. On December 25th, the faithful were called to Gothic cathedrals like Notre Dame and Salisbury Cathedral in England for Christ's Mass, soon to be called Christmas. But out in the streets, the holiday was still more raucous than religious.
If you went to England around Christmas time, any time before, say, 1800, you'd probably feel pretty ill at ease. You wouldn't think it was Christmas at all. What would you think it was? Maybe Mardi Gras, maybe New Year's Eve, maybe Halloween? Because Christmas in old-time England was really a carnival.
The houses of London were littered with brawling, drunken villagers and couples engaged in the most unholy activities. And each Christmas...
You heard him. Take a quick break. You know, I know some people act like they don't understand out there.
All right, Jim, I know you've been trying to get your head around some of the social issues we discussed yesterday. I'm sure you're feeling confused and a little unsure of yourself.
I'm not confused at all, actually, PC Principal.
Okay, well, no, you are confused.
I'm pretty sure you're the one that's confused, but go ahead.
Because you don't grasp the severity of this, and that's why I brought in another young person with disabilities to share his feelings. Thanks for coming in to talk to us, Nathan.
I like apples and bananas.
Me too, bro, me too. Nathan, could you tell Jimmy how you feel when people use the word retarded?
It hurts my feelings because I feel bad. Are you serious right now?
You feel bad, right? You feel like that's a no-no word, right?
That word makes my heart piss its pants.
Okay, wow, that's pretty heavy. Pretty heavy, huh, Jim?
Do you want to ask him what he means by that, or are you just pandering because you're uncomfortable around disabled people?
I am not uncomfortable! I simply care about a horrible, outdated word that is exclusive, ignores individuality, and equates intellectual disability with being in its spot. I need a spotter. Spot me. Somebody spot me, bro. And it's part of a derogatory hate speech which fosters isolation and loneliness, and being part of a voice to stop the R word is not only right but extremely important.
Word. Fair use.
By the Middle Ages, Christianity had largely replaced the old pagan religions of Europe. On December 25th, the faithful were called to Gothic cathedrals like Notre Dame and Salisbury Cathedral in England for Christ's Mass, soon to be called Christmas. But out in the streets, the holiday was still more raucous than religious.
If you went to England around Christmas time, any time before, say, 1800, you'd probably feel pretty ill at ease. You wouldn't think it was Christmas at all. What would you think it was? Maybe Mardi Gras, maybe New Year's Eve, maybe Halloween, because Christmas in old-time England was really a carnival.
The houses of London were littered with brawling, drunken villagers and couples engaged in the most unholy activities. And each Christmas, a beggar or student was temporarily put in charge after being crowned the Lord of Misrule. The rest of the peasantry also got their once-a-year chance to grab power from the ruling classes.
They would go around to the houses of the rich, they would bang on the doors and demand entry, and once they were let in, the lord of the manor had to give them the best stuff that he had. He had to give them his best food, he had to give them his best beer, his best of everything.
And a jolly wassail, it's then you shall...
His best woman.
But if he didn't, they would threaten or actually perform a trick.
Come butler, come fill us.
One surviving Christmas song says, if you don't give us what we want, then down will come butler, bowl and all.
But if you do draw us a bowl of
Trick or treat.
the small, then down shall go butler, bowl and all, bowl and all.
Some historians think that it performed the role of a safety valve. You might say that a wealthy man could make up for an entire year of small or large injustices to the poor by giving a generous Christmas handout just once in the year.
Get them niggas a Christmas bonus.
The rules of Christmas would soon change, however, as a wave of religious reform swept through England in the early 17th century.
Fair use, fair use, fair
Led
use.
by Oliver Cromwell, the Puritans
Ghetto
overthrew
Presentz,
the king's
Xmas
forces in
Aint.
1645 and vowed to rid England of
Uno.
all that was decadent. High on their list was English Christmas.
By giving a generous Christmas handout just once in the year.
The rules of Christmas would soon change, however, as a wave of religious reform swept through England in the early 17th century. Led by Oliver Cromwell, the Puritans overthrew the king's forces in 1645 and vowed to rid England of all that was decadent. High on their list was English Christmas, and in 1652...
Shout out to Oliver Cromwell for enslaving my Irish ancestors. Yo, ghetto, stop.
They outlawed it altogether. Shops were ordered to stay.
Me and Savage Reds. Shout to Savage Red. Me and Savage Red's Irish ancestors. Salute to Oliver Cromwell for enslaving our Irish ancestors.
Open. Churches were forced to stay closed.
The Puritans were always, I think, deeply attracted to those things that they were most opposed to. They had a fear that they might have too good of a time. I don't mean to trivialize them, but there was a deep fear that if these things were legalized, they themselves might enjoy them and their souls would be lost.
The Puritans may have said good riddance to Christmas, but the people never really stopped celebrating it. The holiday merely went underground. If Christmas pie was illegal, it began to be known as mince pie instead, which was just as delicious.
The deeper need for Christmas in the human heart, the need for celebration at a time of darkness, those needs made the battle against Christmas, gave it a few temporary wins, but it couldn't possibly secure a final victory.
In 1656, the men of Kent and Canterbury passed a resolution saying that if they could not have their Christmas day, they would have the king back on his throne. They soon got their wish. The monarchy was restored with Charles II, and Christmas was restored with him. It seemed the English could live without a king, but not without Christmas.
It has been argued that one reason for the restoration of
gave it a few temporary wins, but it couldn't possibly secure a final victory.
In 1656, the men of Kent and Canterbury passed a resolution saying that if they could not have their Christmas day, they would have the king back on his throne. They soon got their wish. The monarchy was restored with Charles II, and Christmas was restored with him. It seemed the English could live without a king, but not without Christmas.
It has been argued that one reason for the restoration of the monarchy is because by restoring the monarchy, you also restored Christmas, or restored the proper English Christmas with its rituals, its traditions, and its carousing. Christmas is brought back, if you like, by popular acclaim.
The fight against Christmas may have been lost in England, but the Puritans had high hopes for the new colonies in America. In 1620, a small group of separatists came ashore at Plymouth, Massachusetts. Even more orthodox than their English cousins, these men and women hoped to rid themselves once and for all of the Christmas scourge. In 1659, Puritans in Boston followed their English brethren in outlawing Christmas. Anyone caught exhibiting the Christmas spirit was fined 5 shillings. Like in England, however, Christmas remained impossible to contain. The 1719 Boston Almanac doesn't list a Christmas holiday, but it does recommend that in late December you not let your children and servants run too much abroad at night.
From almost the beginning in Massachusetts, there's evidence
once and for all of the Christmas scourge. In 1659, Puritans in Boston followed their English brethren in outlawing Christmas. In 1820, a small group of separatists came ashore at Plymouth, Massachusetts. Even more orthodox than their English cousins, these men and women hoped to rid themselves once and for all of the Christmas scourge. In 1659, Puritans in Boston followed their English brethren in outlawing Christmas. Anyone caught exhibiting the Christmas spirit was fined 5 shillings. Like in England, however, Christmas remained impossible to contain. The 1719 Boston Almanac doesn't list a Christmas holiday, but it does recommend that in late December you not let your children and servants run too much abroad at night.
From almost the beginning in Massachusetts, there's evidence that some people practiced Christmas, and that when they did so, it was in fact an opportunity to get drunk. And one of the most interesting little sidelights on this is the finding of historical demographers that there was actually a bulge in conceptions, the conception of children, that took place during Christmas.
You're a bastard, Mr. Stubbs. You really are a Tom. You stole your friend's possessions to buy a CD-ROM, Mr. Stubbs. Your current address is at www.badodor.com.
But Santa, why are you taking our fish tank? Why?
Now that old dirty bastard was as smart as they get. He thought up a lie, and quickly, you bet.
Phantom Menace is the best Star Wars yet.
You're a biatch, Mr. Stubbs. Your heart's an open sore between you and Jar Jar Binks. Niece, I say I like him more, Mr. Stubbs. Mr. Stubbs. Ah! Why you must have purchased your morals at the 99-cent store.
in there?
What happened to my... Damn.
Right there.
Hey!
Yeah.
I've been waiting on this day since your little uppity ass came into town.
You want to kill me, Air Marshal?
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. We know the air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value.
Not all the colonies had such trouble with Christmas. Captain John Smith, leader of the Jamestown settlement in Virginia, wrote that their first New World Christmas was kept with plenty of good oysters, wild fowl, and good bread. Jamestown settlers were also the first to drink eggnog as a Christmas drink, the nog coming from the word grog, which means any drink made with rum. Captain John Smith, leader of the Jamestown settlement in Virginia, wrote that their first New World Christmas was kept with plenty of good oysters, wild fowl, and good bread. Jamestown settlers were also the first to drink eggnog as a Christmas drink, the nog coming from the word grog, which means any drink made with rum. After independence, however, all things English fell out of favor in America, Christmas included. In fact, on December 25th, 1789, the United States Congress sat in session and continued to stay open on Christmas Day for most of the next 67 years.
At this same time, there are people who are writing in their diaries that, isn't it too bad we don't have any holidays? So after the revolution, here is an entire nation that works hard, has forsaken many holidays, has given up many holidays because they were holidays that were mandated by the crown. And it is time to start thinking about how to populate the calendar.
As the 19th century dawned, Christmas would be one holiday that would pull the new nation together. But it wouldn't be the carnival Christmas of Old England, nor would it be particularly religious. America would invent its very own Christmas, and in the process, reinvent it for the whole world. New York City, 1820. Within the space of a generation, New York had gone from a backwater port town to the center of American commerce. Great wealth came to a few during these years and moderate livings to the burgeoning middle class. But the Industrial Revolution had also created a class of the unemployed and unconnected, whose very existence threatened the cozy world of New York's middle rung. This was never more clear than at Christmas time.
Damn, better we get it. No, you didn't. You didn't get it.
New York City, 1820.
Liquid means rewind, gunshot means forward. You requested, so we rewind. I did too much rewinding. I'm doing too much.
Then at Christmas time.
Here we go.
Class conflict was emerging.
There we go.
Great wealth came to a few during these years and moderate livings to the burgeoning middle class. But the Industrial Revolution had also created a class of the unemployed and unconnected, whose very existence threatened the cozy world of New York's middle rung. This was never more clear than at Christmas time.
Class conflict was emerging with the earliest stages of industrial capitalism. And so what had previously just had an edge of menace, a little bit of trick, but much more goodwill, much more treat, now changed, and the menace became increasingly obvious and increasingly serious. So that by the 1820s, the Christmas season in cities like New York was really a time of gang rioting, a really very, very nasty scene. So nasty, in fact, that in the year 1828, the New York City Council for the first time instituted a professional police force for the city as a direct result of a particularly savage Christmas season riot the year before.
Great wealth came to a few during these years and moderate livings to the burgeoning middle class. But the Industrial Revolution had also created a class of the unemployed and unconnected, whose very existence threatened the cozy world of New York's middle rung. This was never more clear than at Christmas time.
Class conflict was emerging with the earliest stages of industrial capitalism. And so what had previously just had an edge of menace, a little bit of trick, but much more goodwill, much more treat, now changed, and the menace became increasingly obvious and increasingly serious. So that by the 1820s, the Christmas season in cities like New York was really a time of gang rioting, a really very, very nasty scene. So nasty, in fact, that in the year 1828, the New York City Council for the first time instituted a professional police force for the city as a direct result of a particularly savage Christmas season riot the year before.
New York's upper class was worried. So worried that a few of them set out to change the way the holiday was celebrated. Washington Irving was America's best-selling novelist, and in 1819 he used his expertise to write Bracebridge Hall, an enormously popular series of stories about Christmas at an imaginary English manor house. Here, the classes mingled effortlessly as squires welcomed friendly and grateful peasants into their homes. And in 1843, England's most popular writer, Charles Dickens, Illustrated News published this engraving of the royal family standing by the first Christmas tree most English had ever seen. In just a few years, a decorated fir could be found in nearly every English home at Christmas.
Within a few years, if you look at Victorian diaries or letters, people are saying, we had a Christmas tree as is customary, or we had a Christmas tree as we have always had. And of course, they hadn't always had one at all. It is a custom which had started in the 1840s. And by the late 1850s, people believed that the Christmas tree was part of the English Christmas.
Americans embraced the Christmas tree just as quickly as the English had. In fact, its connection to the Old World was one of its strongest selling points.
For a lot of Americans, these are going to be new holiday traditions, not something their parents observed, especially in the case of the more austere Protestants. So they're looking for a reason for what they're doing. And one of the most convenient reasons they can have is they can say, well, this is the way it's done in Germany, or this is the way it's done in England.
All of a sudden, Christmas traditions were popping up everywhere. In 1828, Joel R. Poinsett, America's minister to Mexico, brought back a green and red plant that seemed perfect for the new holiday. And in 1843, the English firm of J.C. Horsley printed the first Christmas card.
Not the poinsettias.
A newly efficient postal service in England and America helped make Christmas cards and over...
That's crazy that we learned that the police force was really formalized to stop the rioting that was happening due to the Christmas celebration. Let's keep it going.
Overnight sensation. It seemed as though every vestige of the old bacchanalian Christmas was gone, but even the Victorians couldn't clean up Christmas completely.
Victorians were particularly keen on mistletoe because, of course, you could actually kiss a lady, or a lady could kiss a man, that normally, in the normal course of events, she would not be allowed to kiss.
So it allowed them to be debaucherous.
And in 1843, the
what
English
happens on Christmas stays on Christmas. Yeah, right? What happens on Christmas stays on Christmas. Boy, you ain't see nothing. Oh, I saw y'all over there by the mistletoe. You ain't see nothing.
Of J.C. Horsley printed the first Christmas card. A newly efficient postal service in England and America helped make Christmas cards an overnight sensation. It seemed as though every vestige of the old bacchanalian Christmas was gone, but even the Victorians couldn't clean up Christmas completely.
Victorians were particularly keen on mistletoe because, of course, you could actually kiss a lady, or a lady could kiss a man, that normally, in the normal course of events, she would not be allowed to kiss. So in a society which was fairly strict, one vestige of that licentious Christmas from earlier times is the sprig of mistletoe. No Victorian Christmas gathering was without it.
By mid-century, Christmas was everywhere in America, in the streets, in the homes, in the marketplace. The one place you could not find Christmas was in church. Most Americans were Protestant, and the Protestant church had ignored Christmas for years. But Protestant Victorians longed for official religion on this sacred day.
What a number of them do initially is say, well, if we can't find a Christmas service in our Baptist church or our Presbyterian church, let's go see what the Catholics are doing, or let's go see what the Episcopalians are doing. And increasingly that puts pressure on these Latter-day Puritans to have Christmas services because there's a way in which lay people begin to expect it.
Church services, mistletoe, and Christmas trees. America's new holiday now seemed firmly in place. But Victorian America had one last contribution to the Christmas season. A jolly elf who shimmied down the chimney would soon personify.
Not a jolly elf.
By Christmas for generations to come.
Here comes Santa Claus, right down Santa Claus Lane.
We borrowed the Christmas tree from Germany and the Christmas card from England. But one Christmas icon was developed right here in America, Santa Claus.
Hang your stocking, say your prayers, 'cause Santa Claus comes tonight.
Long before Santa, however, there was St. Nicholas, a Greek Orthodox bishop.
They put a dark-skinned picture of St. Nicholas. They doing the right thing by this. St. Nicholas was a copper-colored brother, what we'd call a so-called black man. He was a bishop of Myra and also of one other place, I want to say Berea, but I know he was definitely the bishop of Myra, and he became a saint out there because it was said that what he would do is give away his money. He was extremely wealthy, and he had saved these two young girls from having to be sold into slavery or servitude by paying for them with sacks of gold that he left in their house overnight. So yeah, Saint Nicholas, man. Shout out to St. Nicholas, Bishop of Myra. Much love.
Who became one of the most popular.
Pressure on these Latter-day Puritans to have Christmas services because there's a way in which lay people begin to expect it.
Before we even get there, let me let that play.
Church services, mistletoe, and Christmas trees. America's new holiday now seemed firmly in place. But Victorian America had one last contribution to the Christmas season. A jolly elf who shimmied down the chimney would soon personify Christmas for generations to come.
Here comes Santa Claus, right down Santa Claus Lane.
We borrowed the Christmas tree from Germany and the Christmas card from England. But one Christmas icon was developed right here in America, Santa Claus.
Hang your stocking, say your prayers, 'cause Santa Claus comes tonight.
Long before Santa, however, there was St. Nicholas, a Greek Orthodox bishop who became one of the most popular saints of the Middle Ages. On December 6th, St. Nicholas Day, good children woke to gifts.
Santa Claus, here comes Santa Claus, right down Santa Claus Lane.
We borrowed the Christmas tree from Germany and the Christmas card from England. But one Christmas icon was developed right here in America, Santa Claus.
Hang your stocking, say your prayers, 'cause Santa Claus comes tonight.
Long before Santa, however, there was St. Nicholas, a Greek Orthodox bishop who became one of the most popular saints of the Middle Ages. On December 6th, St. Nicholas Day, good children woke to gifts from the kindly saint. Bad children sulked away with nothing.
And they trying to they being cute with the pictures of St. Nicholas. So I'm gonna have to be real indignant for 3 seconds. St. Nicholas of Myra. They being cute with the pictures. Let's cut the nonsense out, y'all. Let us cut the nonsense out. I know that man was a brother. Let's not do this. We talk about Eastern Orthodox Germany back then. We know that man was a brother. He's not a brother. That's just those dark-skinned white folk. Oh, why y'all so cute, man? This is St. Nicholas of Myra, Bishop of Myra. Very dark-skinned man. Let's go.
In Holland, he was known as Sinterklaas.
Sinterklaas.
And when the Dutch came to this country, they brought tales of their gift-giving Nicholas with them. This quaint custom caught the imagination of Clement Clark Moore, a well-heeled Episcopal minister in New York City. In 1822, Moore wrote a poem for his children about a good-natured saint who came down the chimney on Christmas Eve.
'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse.
Vintage.es in its article, 15 historical figures you probably didn't know were so-called black or copper colored. Betty Boop. Oh my Lord. Betty Boop. They might have drawn Betty Boop white, but her history is so-called black. The character was usually stolen from Cotton Club singer Esther Jones, known by her stage name as Baby Esther, and the baby talk she used when she sang songs like I Want to Be Loved by You, boop boop be-doo. Her act inspired cartoonist Max Fleischer to create the character Betty Boop. Esther tried to win. J. Edgar Hoover, people don't want to deal with that one, but yes, he was. The Medici family. Oh, what? There was no black aristocracy. Jacqueline Onassis. Jacqueline Onassis, a member of the Van Sales family, famous for their mulatto heritage. Antoine Broyard. That's not what I came here for, though, but these are good to know. Queen Charlotte, of course, they've made the series about her recently. Alexander Pushkin, Beethoven, King Tut, of course. Santa Claus. I like that this is here. Got it. Can I exit this? I can't exit this. Oh, they playing with me, right? I love it that they playing with me now as I'm trying to look at this. Santa Claus. Why is this here? This is so annoying. All right. Y'all got me. Y'all happy? Y'all got me? Oh, word. That just did that. No, that didn't fix anything. There you go. Here's the picture of Santa Claus. St. Nicholas. What we talking about, family? What are we talking about, family? Huh? Play with me, or at least St. Nicholas, the saint that the legend is based on. Old St. Nick was born in what is now considered Turkey at a time of metropolis for people of so-called quote-unquote African descent. Hannibal, St. Augustine, Alexander Dumas, Alexander Hamilton, Clark Gable. I'll leave that alone though, but thank you. Another saint, St. Augustine, Hannibal, St. Nicholas, Santa Claus. What we talking about, family? Let's keep it going.
The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas would soon be there.
Moore dreamed up Dasher, Dancer, and the rest of the reindeer, along with Santa's entrance through the chimney.
But y'all might want to know a little more about St. Nicholas, so I got you. I got you. Under my skin, the archaeologist.org, Civilizations of the World. St. Nicholas of Myra, the real story behind Santa Claus by the Archaeologist Editor Group. As the holiday season approaches, images of a jolly man with a white beard and a red suit are all the rage now. Are ubiquitous in many parts of the world. Santa Claus, as he's known today, has become a symbol of merriment, generosity, and the holiday spirit. Yet few realize that this beloved figure finds its roots in a real life, in the life of a real person, St. Nicholas of Myra. The article delves into the true history of St. Nicholas, the 4th century bishop whose life and legends paved the way for our modern Santa Claus. The historical Nicholas, St. Nicholas of Myra, sometimes known as Nicholas of Bari or Bari, was an early Christian bishop from Myra, a port city in Asia Minor. You mean those port Jews, those port Hebrews? Present-day Demri, Turkey, who lived during the Roman Empire from the 50s. Man was born on March 15th, 270 Common Era to December 6th, 3 Common Era. Okay. So he also goes by the name Nicholas the Wonder Maker because of the numerous miracles credited to his intercession. Him helping in interceding in people's lives, him getting involved in people's needs and matters. They would have miraculous results. In many European cities and nations, St. Nicholas is revered as the patron saint of sailors, merchants, archers, penitent thieves, prostitutes, kids, brewers, pawnbrokers, singles, and students. As was typical for early Christian saints, his fame grew among the religious, and through Sinterklaas, his fabled practice of presenting gifts in secret gave rise to modern Santa Claus. St. Nicholas is one of the most revered saints in all of Christianity. On December 6th, both East and West observe a day of remembrance. Orthodox, Catholic, Lutheran, and Anglican Christians all honor and remember him. He comforted every man in need and was a passionate critic of those who preyed on the weak and underprivileged. He exerted control over everyone who was to blame for the evil of the people with his exceptional bravery. The absolutely destitute saint gave to the destitute girls, guarded the crops of the destitute farmers, and helped the sailors. He also participated in the First Ecumenical Council of Nicaea, when Christian doctrine was primarily formulated by denouncing the Arius faction and articulating the true and unadulterated faith of the church. He allegedly smacked Arius. Sound like something my brother would do. During the council, which led to his imprisonment by Emperor Constantine the Great. Slapped him. Go ahead, St. Nick. Tales of generosity. Several stories surrounding Nicholas's benevolence have survived the centuries. One of the most famous legends tells of a poor man with 3 daughters who had no dowry, as I was explaining to you guys, putting them at risk of a life of servitude or worse. On 3 separate occasions, Nicholas secretly tossed a bag of gold into their home, ensuring each daughter had a dowry, some meaning they could now pay for their weddings. Some versions claim he threw gold through an open window, while others say he dropped it down a chimney, where it landed in stockings left to dry by the fire. Can't make this up, guys. Another account speaks of Nicholas saving 3 innocent men from execution. He boldly intervened, grabbing their executioner's sword and ensuring their release based on new evidence. Yet another story tells of a time when Myra faced a severe famine. Like Egypt with Joseph, my goodness. A ship filled with grain docked at the port, and Nicholas approached the sailors, asking them to spare a portion of their cargo for the starving citizens and assuring them that God would recompense their generosity. When they finally unloaded the grain in Constantinople, their cargo had not diminished at all. That's crazy. So they gave grain, but still had all the grain they needed by the time they got to Constantinople. Well, had all of the grain intact. He was a representative embodiment of the ancient Greek tradition, the humanitarian ideals of Hellenism in combination with Christian ethics, met in the face of Nicholas and became a religious practice. His democratic tactics and his collegial methods and his actions were articulated through the experience of long-standing Greek tradition, which saved and improved by Christian teaching and practice. Evolution of the legend. St. Nicholas was a true exponent of the Greek Orthodox Christian ideal, who traveled the world and was identified with the German god Odin, the Dutch Sinterklaas, the Scandinavian Nisi, and the English Father Christmas, the nice old father of the Chinese, and Père Noël of the French, and Santa Claus of the Americas. While on his return back to his place of origin, he was identified as Agios Vasilis, Basil the Elder. In Greece, St. Nicholas is best known as the patron saint of sailors, fishermen, ships, islands, and all cities with harbors, just as Myra was. The feast day of St. Nicholas is on December 6th, the day when the beloved bishop is reported to have passed away in the year 342 AD. The proximity of this date to Christmas is perhaps one reason why he became so closely associated with it. St. Basil of Caesarea, who lived from 329 to 379, shares a very similar story to that of St. Nicholas. A contemporary of St. Nicholas, Basil was the bishop of Caesarea in Cappadocia, also in modern-day Turkey. Much like St. Benedict in the West, St. Basil established wide-ranging guidelines for monastic life. He died on January 1st, 379. All right, very cool, very cool. Thank you, archaeologist.org, for this history of St. Nicholas of Myra. Get back to the video.
But at first, he was embarrassed by the poem. He worried it was too frivolous for a man of the church.
Clement Moore was a minister. Here, a minister who should be on the other side is promoting a secular Christmas with reindeer and all the rest of it. But there was no mention in the poem of anything religious. And in fact, that's why he didn't reveal who he was. In the beginning, he didn't reveal the authorship.
Moore soon owned up to the poem when it became clear that every child in America was scanning the horizon for reindeer on Christmas Eve. Less clear was what exactly this Santa Claus looked like. At first, Santa came in all shapes and sizes: a pagan sorcerer, a frightening gnome, even a drunkard on a turkey-driven sleigh. Then, in 1863, Thomas Nast, a cartoonist for Harper's Weekly, settled the matter once and for all with his version of the Christmas Saint. Nast Santa was rounder and jollier than his austere Catholic cousin. He looked, in fact, like a man of his times, a man who would fit right in with the rotund, bewhiskered robber barons of the late 19th century. But Santa was a robber baron in reverse.
Instead of taking from the less fortunate, he gave to the less fortunate. He gave to people regardless of whether they'd done something or not. In other words, he gave to children. Instead of gathering together wealth, he gets rid of wealth, and he does it yearly.
A captain of industry with a heart of gold. It's no wonder that by the 1840s, Santa Claus was an irresistible image to America's retailers. Here was a guy who could sell anything at Christmas, but make it seem like you were not buying gifts at all.
Santa Claus provided a way for both children and parents to pretend that Christmas presents were not in the realm of the commercial marketplace, that Christmas presents existed in the realm of pure domestic affection. So Santa Claus played a very important role for both parents and children. He took presents out of the realm of commerce.
If the image of Santa could sell merchandise, retailers soon figured that a real-life Santa would boost sales even further. Santa has been showing up in department stores since the mid-1800s. And since then, nothing has loomed larger to a child at Christmas than this annual pilgrimage.
If you want to talk to Santa Claus, where do you go? You go to the shopping mall. Now, this is strange for a saint to be living pretty much full-time in a department store. It doesn't bother Americans because we are, after all, a capitalistic society. It makes perfect sense for us to have our national saint in a department store. That's commercial sense for us, dollars and cents.
Commercial sense. Dollars and
Retailers
cents.
soon figured that a real-life Santa would boost sales even further.
This is all about the money.
Santa has been showing up in department stores since the mid-1800s. And since then, nothing has loomed larger to a child at Christmas than this annual pilgrimage.
If you want to talk to Santa Claus, where do you go? You go to the shopping mall. Now, this is strange for a saint to be living pretty much full-time in a department store. It doesn't bother Americans because we are, after all, a capitalistic society. It makes perfect sense for us to have our national saint in a department store. That's commercial sense for us, dollars and cents.
Author and humorist Gene Shepherd immortalized this rite of passage in A Christmas Story, an autobiographical account of one boy's Christmas.
You know, I'd been thinking for weeks what I wanted for Christmas. I figured the best thing to do is to tell Santa Claus about
Christmas
that.
Story is classic. I'm not going to
And I looked up at that
classic.
Santa Claus, and he had these big, watery blue eyes and a huge beard and all, and he's looking at me right in the eye. And he was so impressive that my mind went blank.
Ho, 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 and what's your name, little boy?
It's like if all of a sudden you're sitting on the president's lap, and he says, "What would you like me to pass in legislation, Sonny?" I mean, your mind's going to go blank. You can't remember any of this stuff. And so at that point, Santa Claus looked at me and he says, "All right, how about a football, kid?"
How about a nice football?
Football.
Oh, so he's the guy who played this character.
So he pushed me off his lap, and this elf grabbed me and threw me down a slide that went down into the snow. And I laid there for a minute, and I knew that I was not a fit person to talk to the great. Santa Claus was obviously a star.
A celebrity of this magnitude obviously needed a sidekick. In 1939, Robert May, a copywriter at the Montgomery Ward department store, dashed off a promotional children's book to lure Christmas shoppers into the store. May's story told of an ostracized reindeer with a big red nose.
Poor Rudolph. Where most reindeers' noses are brownish and tiny, Rudolph's was red, very large, and quite shiny.
This physical, shall I say, disability turns out to be an asset because it's a foggy Christmas Eve.
This fog will be hard to get through.
And this light on the nose enables poor old stumbling Santa Claus to get through.
Then how the reindeer loved him as they shouted out with glee. Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer, you'll go down in history.
So you have this handicapped sort of child figure helping the benighted parental figure make Christmas possible.
Rudolph brought Christmas full circle. It was now the children who really made Christmas possible. Only they understood the meaning of this enchanted day. From Washington Irving to Montgomery Ward, a battle for Christmas had been fought and won by kids. By the 1920s, few vestiges of the carnival Christmas were left in America. One exception was this Christmas parade in New York City, where a glimpse of Santa Claus was worth the all-day wait. But by the 1950s, Christmas was strictly a family affair, with eggnog by the fire, Bing on the hi-fi, and a load of presents under the tree.
Chestnuts roasting on an open fire, Jack Frost nipping at your nose, tiny tots with their eyes all aglow will find it hard to sleep tonight.
The joy of
attention, please. My name is Uncle Rucker, no relation. I want to sing y'all a brand new song I just wrote called Don't Trust Them New Niggas Over There. Sing along if you know the words. Don't trust them new niggas over there, leaving they nigga essence in the air. Them happy, nappy-head niggas with the fingers on the trigger. Don't trust them new niggas over there.
Are you sure that vessel stopped this shotgun?
Man, I'm like the Terminator in this vest. What, you don't believe me? Go ahead. Pull the trigger.
Now, are you sure that...
I said pull that trigger now!
You want to play rough? Okay.
Don't trust them big nostrils over yonder. They suck up so much air, it'll make you wonder.
Word, gang. We're going to leave it here for the first one of the series. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you rocked out and vibed out, and I super appreciate it. Pass this one along to any of your friends who you know still on the fence about whether they should be teaching their children to celebrate and keep this thing up. We've seen so many things today, but we only scratching the surface. There's so much more information we're going to share and get through. And I love you guys for rocking and vibing. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Support the movement. $, his ghetto point of view. $, his ghetto point of view. $, his ghetto point of view. We'll be back, family. Peace.
All the people with the backwards attitude, pointing fingers. And that's a bad excuse for sitting on your ass when you complain. It's two things that you don't want to change. You ain't got no time for me, and I ain't got no sympathy for you.
Peace and love, family. See you for part 2 very soon. Or catch me on somebody's podcast. You know what I mean? Love to everybody who be letting me on and rocking out. We out of here.
Thank you for coming. I'll see you in hell.